So we are live on YouTube.
Thank you, Christy. So welcome to everyone. This is our special meeting of council, and it is going to be live streamed electronically, September the 14th, 2021. So welcome, everybody. We have some members of the public with us, some staff, consultants, council. So welcome, and I'll go ahead and open the meeting. And if we can please have a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. And just to let everyone know that Joanna is not with us tonight, but our treasurer, Andrew Hodge, will be taking over and facilitating in place of Joanna. So thank you for this, Andrew. And also to the public, that if you have questions tonight, if you can address them to our usual admin email. However, we do prefer you to send it through Facebook if you have any questions. And I guess that's the only two ways for tonight there, Christy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So please do that if you wish. I don't think there's anything else, except that I also would ask council that if you do have any disclosure of interest, you can declare it now or anytime during the meeting. Moving on, we do have a motion. It was moved by Ian Straight and seconded by Claude Vandermeer that the special meeting of council agenda dated September the 14th, 2021 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And so we're moving on then. We don't have any minutes to approve tonight, do we? No. Okay, so business, and there's no business rights for minutes. So we're going to move on. We have no delegations tonight, but we have our one and only report, which is the reason for why we call this meeting. And we have present with us our consultant planner, Forbes Simon. And this is going to be on our official plan update. We've had many discussions already, but it's moving forward. And we thank you for all the work you've already done, Forbes. So thank you for being with us tonight. And also we do have our planner, Carl Grinke, with us for our backup. So thank you for Carl for that and the help that you provided to Forbes. We're going to then move on, and I'm going to hand this part of the meeting over to you, Forbes, and you can take over then. Thank you, Forbes.
You're on mute there.
Yep, you're mute
COVID
there,
moment.
Forbes. Yep.
I'm back with you now. Thanks.
We won't charge you $25 for not unmuting yourself. So
No.
like they do in Leeds Grenville.
Very good. Thank you very much, Council, for the opportunity this evening. I wish to remind everybody that this is a formal public meeting under the Planning Act to consider the official plan amendment that has come out of the official plan review and update process that Council started over a year ago. So we are getting near the end of the process, and I want to thank everybody for their involvement and participation to date. I'm just briefly going to highlight some of the points of my planning report, if I may, Reeve.
Yes.
As we've indicated, this amendment was based on an issues and options report that was presented to Council early in the new year. The intent was to update the official plan so that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement of 2020 and conforms to the Lanark County Sustainable Community Official Plan. All the efforts to date have been geared towards those two goals of getting the plan updated and in sync with senior level government documents. Earlier in the summer, in June of this year, Council did receive a draft of Official Plan Amendment 1 for the purpose of agency circulation and public review. That document has been circulated to over 28 agencies, including provincial ministries, Indigenous communities, Conservation Authority, Parks Canada, surrounding municipalities, and the Health Unit. And to date, we've received 2 very thoughtful comments from Parks Canada and Rideau Conservation Authority, which have been, in my opinion, quite helpful in refining the amendment that's before you. The notice of the public meeting was sent out in July 28th of this year. It was in the newspapers and on the Township website. And there was a formal open house to consider or to present the amendment to the public last week at this very time. In terms of going forward with the official plan update, the PPS 2020 conformity exercise identified the need to update the official plan with respect to engagement with First Nations and Indigenous communities, permitting secondary dwelling units as a right, identification of natural heritage systems, recognition of the servicing hierarchy and encouraging communal services, promotion of hamlets as the focus for future growth and development, and development patterns that are efficient and do not cause undue public service expenditures, an expanded range of uses within the agricultural designation, and mapping related to potential karst hazards. All of those matters have been picked up in the official plan amendment that's before you today, Council. I would also like to state that the official plan is in conformity, the official plan amendment rather is in conformity with the policies contained within the Lanark County Sustainability Community Official Plan. The 2 comments that we received, one was from Parks Canada, and they're attached as appendices to my report. Parks Canada provided some clarification in terms of wording, and that it does not change the intent or effect of the amendment, and simply improves the reading and the understanding of the Parks Canada policies. My report does identify that discussions have been ongoing with Parks Canada regarding a 300-meter viewshed buffer of the Rideau Canal. This viewshed buffer was implemented in Merrickville-Wolford, directly across the river from yourselves. But in discussing the matter with Parks Canada staff, they've indicated that no other jurisdiction has gone the route of viewshed buffers. And they would recommend that at this time, we not do a viewshed buffer, but rather rely on the written policies as have been presented and discussed to date. So the section in my planning report that's speaking to viewshed buffers is now been addressed by Parks Canada, and we will not be pursuing that unless Council wishes us to do otherwise. We also received comments from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. They provided language that would clarify that secondary dwelling units aren't permitted within the floodplain or natural heritage areas. They've suggested some wording clarification and improvement to the Hydro G policies that are item 19 of the official plan amendment. They've also provided some clarification on zoning policies, regulating development within the flood plan, and finally, comments on the clustered lot development policies, recommending that the studies be done up front. And that's because as a condition of consent, they only have 1 year to satisfy those conditions. There were no other comments that were received at this time, Reeve, but we have been anticipating comments from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And should those come in, I'll be happy to provide an assessment and recommendation on those points. We've also received comments from two members of the public. One is Mr. Benoit Como of 1259 Pinery Road, and he provided an extensive comment, much of which focused on the history and the form and the function of Pinery Road. He was not pleased with the issues and options report referring to Pinery Road as a negative type of scattered rural residential development, and I respect that. He feels that there's merit in considering or working towards Pinery Road becoming a hamlet due to the obvious interest of people moving to that part of the township, primarily coming from Ottawa. And he did note that work had been done on Pinery Road over the years. He acknowledged that he has a direct personal interest in a number of severance applications. He owns a large block of land along Pinery Road, and his suggestion is to put a moratorium for at least 12 months on the section of the official plan amendment related to reduced severance activity on Pinery Road and all class 4 roads within the township. He's asking for a review of the policies related to the location of hamlets, so that they could maybe consider the implications of that type of development in Montague coming from increased growth from Ottawa. He's also suggested that we take a look at severance applications for the use of unopened road allowances in the township. And he's also stated that there's concerns, he's got concerns with the environmental policies and the concept of accepted logging practices, and is concerned that environmental impact studies are not always followed through on. I've provided a response to Mr. Como's comments in my report. And there are a couple of them that I would like to highlight for you. The first is the request for a moratorium on the severance policy that's suggested for class 4 roads is a concern for me, and it's not something that I am recommending as a planner to you. It is a fact that any application that is submitted to Lanark County Land Division Committee before the last day of appeal for the approval of official plan amendment number 1, any application that's received prior to that is grandfathered and considered under the current policies. Any application submitted after that date would have to comply with the new policies. My submission to council is that we've got 3 or 4 months of activity between now and when the last day of appeal for OPA number 1 could realistically be expected. And anybody that's wishing to submit applications would be encouraged to do so during that time period so that they could be grandfathered. Any applications after that date would not be grandfathered. The comments regarding the hamlets is a challenging one. It's very clear that Mr. Como's acknowledging the number of development applications that are in the Pinery Road area. But the exercise of establishing a hamlet is a very demanding undertaking, and it requires a comprehensive review, which a number of the larger urban areas in Lanark County have undertaken or are in the process of undertaking. But it would be beyond the scope of this project to be able to consider new hamlets within Montague. And my recommendation to council is to focus on the hamlets that you have and promoting those as appropriate sites for new growth and development. With respect to the comments on logging practices, logging practices are governed by the Lanark County tree cutting bylaw. If the township wished to explore this, we could do so in collaboration with Lanark County. However, it should be acknowledged that woodlands, significant woodlands are identified in the township's official plan and are provided a relatively high degree of protection from development pressures. And that's different than normal logging practices. Normal logging practices is something that's governed by the county. The protection of woodlands from development is dealt with under the local official plan, and I believe done well. The difference between how logging is managed and how individual development sites are developed, there is an obvious difference between those two, and the only thing that I feel we have the ability to comment on are the development sites and not logging practices. Finally, much of Mr. Como's comments were based on an assumption that there is a net positive financial gain for the township from scattered rural residential development. And I submit to you that based on studies that have been done throughout the province over the decades, this is a flawed assumption and not supported by the studies that have been done. Most recently, there was a Hemson report in the city of Ottawa in 2010 that commented on this. At best, costs associated with providing services to the rural residential development can be covered by municipal taxes. But where road-related costs are high, the municipality's taxes do not cover the cost of providing services to the residential development, and there's an actual financial liability to the municipality based on this type of development. There's no question it's good for the property owner. There's no question it's good for those that are in the development industry. There's no question that the new resident that moves into the house benefits, but it doesn't provide a financial positive gain to the municipality. And that's important to understand. It's also worth noting that development along unopened road allowances comes with significant costs and liabilities to the municipality that I would encourage be explored in detail if you wish to explore that issue further, as Mr. Como suggested. That is about it that I have to comment on Mr. Como. That we did have another comment from Ben Dobson from Tackleberry Construction, and he wanted confirmation that the new OP will map licensed aggregate sites. What I was able to do was confirm that the Schedule A to the Montague official plan, which is not changing, recognizes all existing licensed pits and quarries in the township. The schedule and Schedule A has not been changed by this process. Schedule B originally identified bedrock resources, and when we did the new update for the natural heritage system, that information was inadvertently left off of Schedule B. We are in the process of preparing a new Schedule C, which will identify the bedrock, aggregate resources that were on the original Schedule B. And that will be coming to council with an updated package for your consideration. It's understood that comments should be received by council. I'm recommending until September 30th, and when additional comments come in, I will review them and provide a response to council. At this time, My report's recommending a number of changes to the amendment that's before you based on the comments from the Conservation Authority and Parks Canada, specifically the rewording of the introductory paragraph in section 2.24 Rideau Canal, revising wording of the policies to prohibit secondary dwelling units within lands identified as floodplain, clarifying the wording on hydrological assessments, clarifying policies related to development in the floodplain, improving wording of policies related to cluster development, and the new Schedule C, which identifies the bedrock resources. Based on this information, Reeve, it is my professional opinion that official plan amendment number 1 to the Montague Township official plan will be consistent with the PPS 2020, will conform to the county's sustainable community official plan, and represents good land use planning and is appropriate for consideration of adoption by council with the above modifications. My report does recognize the additional steps, but at this time, I will leave that report as a matter of public record that's available on your website. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments that come forward at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Forbes. So I will be opening this up to questions, but just a couple of comments for clarification, Forbes, and that's going to be like when you talk about the hamlets, and I know Mr. Como was making comments about talking about the hamlet and the possibility of a hamlet out on the Pinery Road area. Just for clarification, so that everybody realizes that when you talk about hamlets, you actually mean the same thing as settlement areas, right?
Yes, sir.
And just so everybody knows that right now that we do have 7 settlement or hamlet areas in Montague already. And it's not the first time that the discussions have come up regarding other settlement areas or more settlement areas in Montague, Forbes. I know that I myself have talked about the possibility, and I think that we don't really have a handle on how complicated it might be, but I have often wondered why there wouldn't be a settlement area on the Ottawa boundary. And that be because, so many people commute into Ottawa and they would be closer to work. But so it's not the first time that that's come up, but I just wanted to make sure that people realize that hamlets are the same thing as settlement areas. And the other, just for clarification too, you talked about the tree cutting bylaw, and there is a tree cutting bylaw, as you know, at the county level. And I'm pretty sure that we mirror, we in Montague, we don't have our own bylaw, but we mirror the county bylaw. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I just have, this is a question actually, because I only thought about it tonight, because when you were talking about the Parks Canada and the buffer areas, how far back is there a buffer area right now? And the reason okay, because the reason that I'm asking this is it's kind of important, because we've had over the years quite a few discussions about the Andrewsville Bridge and the fact that there's been discussions about closing the Andrewsville Bridge, and one of the reasons was because of that area between the bridge and our neighboring county. And when we talked about, and the reason why it's important is because there is an area that some people think that it belongs to Parks Canada, and yet Parks Canada discount that and say that no, there's no buffer area.
Yeah.
If there was a buffer area, then at least on the, because that bridge is a combined responsibility of the two counties, the United Counties of Grenville and also Lanark. But if there was a buffer area, especially on the one side, then they would be responsible for a deteriorating part of that bridge, that bridge abutment. I just wondered if you could comment on that.
I respect that position very much, and I don't think that any of our discussions have been into the details that you're talking about in terms of the bridge, Reeve. But one of the things I want to clarify is that we are not recommending we go ahead with a view shed buffer associated with the Rideau Canal. I think that that's a level of regulation that's not necessary. I think the new policies speak on their own. And in speaking with the Parks Canada planner, we're of the same opinion on that we should not be going ahead with mapping out the view shed buffer in Montague. And we leave it just as text.
Thank you. So I'm just going to open it up to council for now. If we have any questions. Don't see any questions coming forward right now, Forbes, but I just want to go back. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. And I understand the recommendation, I think, regarding the buffers. But as I said, if there was a buffer in that place, then the Parks Canada would be responsible for the area that's just on the Grenville side of our bridge.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a big expense for somebody.
Yeah, I respect that, Reeve. I think that the view shed buffer, the purpose of the view shed buffer was similar to like the 120 meters from a wetland. That if you're within that view shed buffer, it triggers the need to do studies, right? And so we're not going with that route. We're not recommending that. And it wouldn't determine whose jurisdiction is responsible for what action. It would simply trigger private development proposals needing to do certain studies. And we're not going with that route. At least it's not being recommended to you. If you wish to go that route, we can explore that and do it, but it's not being recommended at this time.
Okay, thanks, Forbes. I'm going to go to Claus. Oh, you're muted, Claus. You're muted, Claus.
All right, okay, thanks. Question for Forbes, if I may. In regards to this buffer zone, is there not still a regulation called the high water mark? And you can only develop your property so far to the water line?
Through you, Reeve. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Klaus. There is still the floodplain associated with the Rideau River. There's still setbacks from the river that are required. This is just specifically related to Parks Canada's jurisdiction. The other jurisdiction under the Conservation Authority isn't changing. Parks Canada's role in reviewing development applications is not changing. So that's staying status quo.
One other comment, if I may.
Yes, Claus.
In regards to Pine area, I can understand Mr. Cuomo's concern and questions and so forth, making a handle it. But I think before we explore that, maybe our next go around, we need to do a lot of work on Pioneer Road before that can become a hamlet.
And I think that the issue of roads that aren't up to standard was highlighted in the township's road needs study. It was identified as a problem. And we've come forward with a policy recommendation that would essentially go from 3 severances down to 1 severance on a substandard road. That is a policy that's been presented to you, and it's discretionary from your end of things. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Jeff?
Thanks, Reeve. I guess one of my questions, that might be through to Andrew too, as well as like during this process, and I read what RBCA is putting forward, and I'm curious, is there a time during this process to talk one-on-one with RBCA about their recommendations and their conversation, or is it really to go through you, Forbes, or I more like just like to hear some of the real strong reasoning from RBCA's side of the incurring restrictions that they seem to be looking at with some of the development and how that's going to affect us, I guess, in the future. So I know we've had a discussion about having RBCA coming just to sort of talk with us, and I'm curious during this process, is that going to be during this process, or does it really go through you, Forbes?
If I may, Reeve, through you. Thanks very much, Jeff. The comments of the Conservation Authority, I think when you look at them, they're actually fairly complimentary of your official plan and what you're trying to do. The few changes that they've suggested, I think, really improve the readability and interpretation of the policies. I have had meetings with the RBCA staff to go over their comments, to make sure that I understood them, to express to them what I thought my position would be going forward. And they were very, very supportive. And the Conservation Authority, I can say quite clearly, commented from a constructive criticism standpoint and trying to make it better. If you wish to talk to RVCA about development in general and their planning program and their approach to planning, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to the GM and set up a time where they could come to your council and discuss their program with you. They do that fairly often with municipalities, but if you put a request, I would encourage you to go that route. Thanks.
Here's a quick follow-up, Reeve, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Andrew, do you know by chance, I know that was discussed and we were talking about having in September or October, do you know if that's on? And if we can get back to that, that's fine with me too as well.
Sorry, what was the question again? Just when we could meet with RVCA?
Yeah, I know we discussed that they were on the docket of coming to have a discussion with us. I'm just curious if we know that's coming up soon or if it's.
I have to look into that. I can get back to you probably for next week's council meeting with more info.
And that's cool. And just one more question for Forbes, if you don't mind, Mr. Dobson.
Yes.
I guess some of it too as well, and I appreciate the complimentary side of RBCA to our official plan, and that's great. I guess some of the discussion points as we're going forward is that it's being put forth on through the county plan, and we have to follow some of those procedures. And I'm just, and a lot of that planning act, our plannings, it really relates strongly, obviously, to the township, and I'm always curious of that discussion point of where it's approved and who it's approved by, and what we're seeing as it's coming down to us. Because sometimes I want to make sure that it's all approved by elected officials and it's clearly understood as we're putting forth any extra limitations or why we're doing extra limitations and how it affects our municipality too as well. So that's really the side of it. So. And
if I may, the RVCA is a major commenter on development proposals. And so having a good relationship with them, understanding how they do their business, what their roles are, and how that relates to council's responsibilities is a critical part to understand and get buttoned down going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forbes and Jeff, for that. I'm going to go to Carl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly Forbes' suggestion is bang on in terms of keeping the lines of communication open with respect to RVCA and their broader programming. In terms of the proposed OP policies that are before you, certainly it's within all of our interests ultimately with council as the approval authority to understand and work with RVCA on the on specific comments and recommendations. So I think for council, any particular feedback or inquiries or clarifications that you would have on with regards to RVCA's particular comments, I would certainly be happy to receive those along with Joanna and Forbes, and we can follow up with RVCA if there is anything that we can clarify or get further information for. There will be opportunities for further discussions in October on this, and I think the timing is excellent to have these conversations with them.
Thanks, Carl. So I don't see any other further questions coming from anyone, any council member of Forbes. And we do have two members of the public with us, but I'm sure that they can ask questions along with any other public when we open that up. So which is probably what I will do now. I do first have a motion though here. It was moved by Jeff Carroll and seconded by Karen Jennings that the council receive the following report, that being the official plan update of yours, Forbes, and that the following be approved, that council receive this report for information. All in favor? And that one is carried. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to ask you, Christy, and I don't think Christy or Andrew, but Christy will probably have them. Do we have any questions at all?
As of right now, let me just refresh. I've been refreshing this whole time, but let me just double check. We have nothing on Facebook and I have nothing in my email.
Okay, then that's it for now then, I think. And I do want to thank Mr. Como for his report or his comments that he sent in. So that, and I also want to thank Forbes for addressing all of those. And I'm sure that if there's further comments and questions from Mr. Como, they will come in to us, as we want to keep it an open line of communication as much as possible. And I know that you've done a lot of work, Forbes, and I do thank you for that, and Carl, for addressing Mr. Como's concerns. And I'm sure that some of them, they're not just his concerns, because some of the comments have certainly come up before in some of our meetings, regarding hamlets and regarding Pinery Road itself and the condition it's in and the safety aspects and so on. So these are not new comments necessarily, but I do appreciate them coming from you, Mr. Como, and also the fact that we're communicating and keeping that line open. So we should continue that. So I think that's now. So any final comments then from you, Forbes and Carl? Forbes first.
Thank you, Reeve. I believe the two people that have registered for the public meeting tonight should be given an opportunity to speak to council, Reeve, if they wish to do so. And so I think it would be appropriate at this stage of the public meeting to open it up to the floor to the members of public that have registered to provide comment.
Yeah, definitely, as this is is an open public meeting, so I will do that. And Mr. Como, do you wish to speak to this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I've paid close attention. I'll start my video. I've paid close attention to what's been said. I really do respect Mr. Simon's expertise, and of course, I defer to his recommendations. As I've mentioned before, the devil is in the details. Excuse me, I've responded via email to some of the counterpoints he made to my submission. What I'd like to do is probably share what I have with the discussion I had with him with you all via email. I don't want to get into the weeds in terms of a debate here. In my submission, I mentioned the fact that I'm really happy with the overall direction and thinking behind the amendments. Where there are some hiccups from my perspective, and I'm prepared to leave it at that for now until I've had further consultations with Mr. Simon and share some of my thoughts via email with you all.
Thank you. And how about Marco? Do you have any comments, questions?
Good evening, Reeve Dobson, members of
Thank you.
council and staff. No direct comments or questions, but as a developer within the county with interests throughout the county, we're just interested in following the OPA process in the township, and that's our interest at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then seeing no other further questions and comments, I think we've covered everything. Andrew, anything from you?
No, I don't have anything else at this time.
Okay, thank you then. And I guess there's still no further questions, Christy? Okay,
Yeah, I
then.
still don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you then. I do have a motion here in front of me. It was moved by Jeff Carroll and seconded by Klaus Vandermeer. The bylaw 3860-2021 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting of council at its meeting held on September the 14th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 14th day of September 2021. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the next motion is moved by Karen Jennings and seconded by Ian Straight, that this meeting do now adjourn at 6:43 p.m. until the call of the Reeve, subject to need. All in favor? And that is carried. So this meeting is now adjourned. So thank you, everybody, for your input. And I think that's it then. So good night to everybody.
Right.